Welcome into the show. Thank you so much for coming back. Today we have Tiffany Dawn to talk all about numerology and mind body spirit release and just really getting into how we can journey deeper into ourselves, get to know ourselves so that we can manifest from a place of that true core of who we are. So I'm super excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm thrilled. As we were talking before, I could talk numbers and mind, body, spirit release all day long, all day
We
long.
literally we literally talked for like 40 minutes like
Yeah. Oh my
beforehand.
God. Really? Yes, we did. Oh, we
I'm
were
like, we
just
just
too in
at this point,
alignment.
we just need to record. Yeah, I definitely dropped on her my name change and my numerology change. And so we really got into some details. But I would love to hear about like how you grew up with numerology and how you're a second generation and how that was for you, so like supportive of you growing up and where you're at now.
Yeah. Well, it was actually pretty interesting. My mother is a numerologist. She is a 7 life path. So she was a deep diver. She was also very skeptic. And when we moved to Virginia Beach, Virginia, I was 8, I guess. We discovered, or they discovered, my parents, the Edgar Cayce Foundation. And the Edgar Cayce Foundation is the second largest religious and spiritual library in the world, second only to the Vatican. That's it.
Wow.
So if I read that correctly, but yes. And so they dug deep. Now we're talking the 70s here, running and natural health and transcendental meditation and Zen and the I
Mhm.
Ching and all the things were really coming in hard. And my parents ate it up. My mother was very skeptical, but she found numerology and was really interested in it and started doing charts. And of course, she did it on us first to see how the alignment was. And she did charts on anyone and everyone just to see, like, does this map? Do
Right.
the numbers number?
Right, right.
And they did. And so she just continued with the modality. And my dad became self employed when I was 12, still is to this day. And he initially used numerology in his business as well. I used it in my school years in ways to sort of navigate certain milestones, be able to predict levels of potential stress through
Wow.
my school years and our personal years and such. And so it just sort of always got talked about. Now, we weren't really speaking honestly about angel numbers at the time. I grew
Yeah.
up seeing the number 212 a lot, so much so that I used to joke with people that I thought it was supposed to be the time of birth because I'm born on 212.
Oh,
And I just, growing up, I thought, I was born at 207 and I thought, I wonder if I was supposed to be born at 212. I mean, I see that thing all the time. I see it all the time. If I wake
uh-huh.
up in the night, it's 212 and I see the clock on school, 212, every day. And, it wasn't until I got much older that I started realizing, oh no, that's not my time of birth. That's an alignment to myself. Like 212,
Oh,
it doesn't work this way, obviously, for everybody, but it happens to be that 212 adds up to 5, and that is my life path. It's very
wow.
connected to me. And so it is a personal angel number to me. And I have shied away from using numerology in a productive way. I have
Hmm.
leaned into it in ways that actually set me up for quite the traumas, just because I was in an unhealed space. And I can
Mm.
explain that in a moment. But, I've leaned in, I've leaned out, I've used it to my benefit, I've used it to my detriment. And I
Mm.
am now finally at a point in life where I let the numbers really speak to me and I don't put meaning on them. And
Mm.
that's really how you allow a relationship to really bloom and be healthy and dynamic and supportive. And so that's where I'm at in numerology now. I use it as personal insight and for fun, just sort
Mm.
of a nice little check in with angel numbers throughout the days. And yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
So with your like lens of numerology and angel numbers, like do you have your own language? Because from what I have gathered from my experiences, like we can create this like language with the universe that we have within numbers or symbols or signs.
Mhm.
do that like lens of numerology and what the numbers mean at their core help you when you like see the angel numbers, or you're just like kind of noticing your own themed angel numbers when you see it like the 212?
Both. So
Both. Okay.
obviously, people tend to think that angel numbers just have to be the same number that repeats, and it's not. It's also numbers that have specific meaning to you.
Mm,
And, it could be a birth date of somebody dear. It could be a death date of somebody that's dear.
mm,
My grandmother passed on May 1st, on May Day, and it's just become a very special day for me. It's a big anniversary day, this 5/1. And so just like an angel number can be personal, an event can be personal. So
mm.
just to get that in mind for it, some people see their birthday a lot. Some
Yeah.
people
Okay.
see, addresses, just something that has meaning. Um,
Yeah.
as far as the understood angel numbers, you know, 333 repeated. Oh, it's about, creativity and, that's what I'm being told. Okay, well, sure, it could be. It also could be that 333 adds up to a 9. So,
Mm,
you know, what am I doing right now, or what am I being shown right now that is more humanitarian driven, closure driven? Do I need to shift my focus? Is it time to end this moment because the creativity isn't there? Are you being told something
mm,
deeper? And so I can kind of play with that throughout my day. It's like, am I at the surface level or am I at a deeper level? Where is it speaking to me?
mm.
And
Interesting.
to be able to really hear that, you have to get out of your own way. You really do have to let the numbers speak to you and tap you on the shoulder,
Yeah.
so that you're not you're not manipulating them.
Yeah.
Manipulation will never get you in a good place,
Yeah. You
and
can't like
you can never manipulate your way into something positive.
right.
And I've done it before. So, I mean, I speak with great wisdom. I became engaged and in a 5 year and married, and I knew from the get go it was not okay. It was not right. And I was so unhealed from prior traumas and
Mm,
so deeply, deeply connected to this fantasy, this dream of how
mm,
my life could be bettered, that I looked at the numbers and saw, oh, I'll be getting married in a 6 year. It's about relationships. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And, on and on and on. And really, that six energy, yes, it's about relationships, but it's about responsibility to self and boundaries. And I did not set one. I didn't call it off. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So, yes, you can absolutely use the numbers to make them say what you want, but
right.
that doesn't make it true.
Right.
Doesn't make it true.
Uh,
And
and
so, yeah, it you
yeah.
there have been pivotal moments in my numerology relationship for sure. Yeah.
It makes me think about like when we learn different tools to connect to self, like
Mhm.
with Terra or like any kind of like, yeah, it just reminds me
Oracle
of that
cards.
with my relationship with that, where you're like, you see the card, you're like, that's probably not it. Let me pick another one. It's just
Yeah.
kind of like being able
Yes.
to hold both sides, or like hold like all of the message. And I think it's really easy and natural as us humans to like be to only look at like the positive side of it, to be like, oh, this is what this is then. And then when we see like the more challenging part, more the part that is letting us go deeper within ourselves, we kind of sometimes want to push that away if we're not ready to hold it there for ourselves. So that's a really good reflection, or like even thought process to think about when you're doing any of these kinds of tools, especially with like your numbers, because it is, you just want to be like, oh, this must mean this.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, there's a
very,
lot of faith that's involved in it. There's a lot of self-trust.
yeah,
Um, when you're not ready to follow the lead, so to speak, because your numerology is just like any other potential energetic whisper.
yeah,
If you don't want to hear it, then yes, you're meant to learn something from it. And maybe you're just not ready at that point. Like I
yeah.
wasn't ready. I mean, all the signs were there. Make a
Wow.
pivot. Make a pivot, say no, set your boundaries. Like you have to say yes to you.
Yeah.
You have to. And I couldn't do it. I didn't have the healing under my under my umbrella at that point.
Wow.
And so I just went through a harder lesson with it, you
Right.
know?
Learned it in the
Yep.
for
I
going
learned
through
it.
it.
Uh-huh. Instead of being able to go, whew, that was a close one. And this is
Yeah.
what I gained. I had to go all the way through just the dirtiness of it, just
Wow.
yeah, the down and dirty of the lesson. And so, I've been through a lot with life and numbers. And so
Mhm.
it's led me to a place of extreme unbias um and unconditional embracing of moments because I've been
Wow.
there probably more than once, probably screwed it up, then did it
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
And
it
that's
has taken my modalities to depths that a lot of others don't, just because
yeah.
I've had it
Yeah.
around me since I was 8.
And now that you're able to like go to those depths with yourselves of the numbers, I could see how you would better be able to reflect that back to people that you work with because you're like,
Mhm.
well, this happened, because obviously we learn so much from personal experience of what we're here to
Mhm.
share. And so,
Mhm.
like, you going through that huge trial of, like, okay, when I didn't listen to the deeper meaning of this number, this happened in my life. And you're able to
Yeah.
share that with other people experiencing the same
Yeah.
instead of, just at surface level, this number is this. Because it doesn't, I mean, definitions and descriptions are really helpful to a degree, but I think especially the way that like I learned best from is other people's experiences and like you know what I mean? You're like,
Yes.
okay, I see their experience and what they went through. I can apply that to my life and not have to go through it myself personally because
Mhm.
I've seen their lesson through that. And then you're
Yes.
able to, and that's how we're able to like, exponentially grow by learning from each other because you're like, oh, okay, I don't have to go through all your lessons. You don't have to go through all my lessons. And we can have
Exactly.
this really nice exchange
Yeah,
in
it's this
community.
cooperative, like, choose your own adventure?
Yeah,
And
choose your own
yeah.
adventure. Yeah.
Mhm.
I love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
what can you talk about what your personal year is and what year you're in now and how those like communicate and talk to each other?
Yeah. So in numerology, you have this essential like core four, which is your life path, your soul urge, your expression, and the energetic of your birth date. And your energetic of your birth date is really a driver of your life path experience. And then your life path integrates within your personal years. And so it's sort of an umbrella. So you've got like one guiding light, which
Mhm.
is your life path. And in order to travel through all of the lessons and joys of that life path, you have to walk a specific road. And walking specific roads carry you through personal years. And within those personal years, you have your personal months. So right now, coincidentally, I am now in a 5 personal year, and I happen
Okay.
to have a 5 life path. So we were talking before we started recording about how I was in a 22-4 year last year. That happens to be my expression. People see me and they just see a natural organizer,
Mm,
um, detail management. I can and see a broad vision, see like the big picture. I'm not just a big picture girl, though. I
mm,
see all of the little details underneath and how they connect. And it
mm,
and so last year, although it can be an incredible business building year, career building year, because 4 is a work number, it
mm,
is planning and structure. Don't skip through things, like really, really work the plan and plan the work. And then when you're doing that, which is something I naturally do, really naturally do, because it's within my core 4 as my expression, the 22 energetic is a master number. So it can elevate
mm.
to real high elevations. And I thought that it was going to be probably about business because I had set my foundations and I had my structures and all set up. And instead, it I needed more foundations of me. And I really went much, much deeper into self. And so that's where I did not skip. I went through every step I could to
Mm.
personal foundations, because what do you build upon? But strong
Yeah.
foundations. And the stronger my foundations, the stronger I also am for others. And now I'm in a 5 year. 5 years are about changes and pivots. It is about new experiences, which can create freedoms, because at its core, it is change and constructive freedom is the energetic of a 5 year. So that is what I'm leaning into now, because I would say if you've got your monetary structure, like you had said that you were very nomadic for a good while,
Mhm.
it takes a lot of structure to do that well and have that freedom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would understand the energetic of a 5 very well from that standpoint. There's a constructive use of that freedom. Are you just going to see change just to have change? Or are you going to be selective in your new experiences to be able
Yeah.
to really squeeze the juice out of what's going to mean the most to you?
Yeah, true. And I believe
Mhm.
now I think back, like when I did that specifically, when I had lived nomadically overseas for a year just by backpack, I was actually like I transitioned into a 5 year. So like
Mhm.
most of that was in that
Yeah.
5 year of being able to
Mhm.
do that. So, and that's just
Yeah.
when I started to touch on numerology and I was like, whoa, this is travel
Yeah.
and change. And this is kind of like what I'm
Mhm.
doing in the midst of it, which that was really interesting to see, like kind of like how you're already operating or
Yeah.
like how your year's already happening, or you can think back to the years and then see how those numbers like overlap and like kind of like are the expression of that.
Yes.
And I was like, that's super wild. Going back to
Yeah.
what your mom originally had said, like, does it match, you know? So yeah, that was
Yeah.
really interesting for me to like to tune into.
And it's interesting when I just look back, I moved a lot in 5 years. And I also like changed jobs, or I changed positions within a job, or I
Hmm.
did some sort of like reinvention. It
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily a new place early on.
Yeah.
It's like move, 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 move,
Right.
start school, do this, do that, start first grade, start high school, start like all of these things were in, specific years. And I can see the pattern.
Wow.
So it really is interesting to be able to like look back. It's part of why I created my numerology journal, that personal month journal, because it gives you a few, like 4 prompts at 3 different times in the month, like to create your relationship and really
Mm,
develop your own personal relationship with the numbers. And I know that it's a general monthly journal, because a one personal month is not fully the same in different personal years. It has a little different flavor to it,
right.
but it does have prompts so that you can plan out your month sort of at the beginning of it, have a few thoughtful
Yeah.
moments, and then in the middle, have a bit of a check in, and then have a bit of a reflection. And you can sort of see how you live with the numbers and how you partner with
Yeah.
them from where you're at,
That's
because a lot of
amazing.
people need that. Yeah, you just need
Yeah.
that little personal insight because
Right. To see
yep,
what it means to you
yeah,
directly. If someone's
exactly.
super new to numerology and they're like they're like, "What the hell are they talking
Yeah.
about?" If you could quickly just give a little rundown of like how you find your personal year and how
Mhm.
you find like your like the core four just in or not the core four, but just your
What they're
um
made up of.
yeah, what your destiny number is, just like to if someone's just like, "I'm just really curious about where I'm at," before they book a reading with you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So your life path is when you just add up your entire full date of birth.
Okay.
So, for me, 2 plus 12 plus the 1971, when you reduce everything, like, well, the 2 is a 2, the 12, and then reducing my 1971, if I add that all the way across, I come up to a 5. That
Okay.
is your
Just
life
adding your
path.
birthday. Okay.
Yep. Now, every letter within the alphabet has a numerological partner.
Mhm.
Okay. And when I map out the name and I get the energetic balance and I add up all of the individual names, first, middle, last, I add them across, that's how I start getting the other information. So
Okay.
your overall expression, which this would be your natural skills and talents and how you implement them within your life.
Mm.
Okay. That is from the addition of all of the letters of your name. And then
Mm.
your soul urge is your deepest, deepest motivation for why you do what you do, that is comprised of the addition of all of the vowels. And there are some little rules and regulations with the
Nuances.
vowels,
Okay.
some nuances with that. So you can't just like A-E-I-O-U, boom. That's all of them. It's not necessarily just that. Sometimes it's the Y and the W, and it's depending on what letter it's next to. And there's some extra little divots there.
Yeah.
But that's where you get your soul urge.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and then of course, obviously the other aspect of, the core four I already spoke to, which is your birth
Right,
date
right.
energetic.
And then
Yeah.
your personal year is just your birthday, day and month,
And
right?
so
And your
so your personal month or your personal year, you get your birth month plus your birth day and
yeah.
the universal year.
Okay.
So that's how you map that out. And I
Your current
do
year.
on Instagram, I do have some highlights, and one of them is personal like numbers by the month. And
Okay.
it's getting to be a very big highlight. So I'm starting to break it up. Um,
Awesome.
because I
So
started
good
it in
resources
May,
there.
but what I
Yeah.
do is every single month. And so once I get to May again, I'm going to break them all up. So it'll be by quarters, easier
Okay.
to tap through. But what I do is I will get on there and I'll say, for January, okay, if you're in a one personal year, this is what your January is about. If you're in a two personal year, it's what your January is about. And so I kind of do that
Perfect.
a little bit because there is a little bit of a nuance to
Yeah.
how that number expresses within any individual year. So that could be helpful for people to,
Gotcha.
kind of tap through to sort of get a little something, something.
Amazing. Okay. So collectively, we are all in a 9 year.
Yes.
What is your take numerologically? What does that mean for us, no matter what our personal year is, moving through a 9 collectively?
Yeah. So a nine collectively. So when I talk about your personal year into the universal year, your
Yeah.
personal year is always going to override. Okay. Let that just
Mm,
be known. Your personal year will
okay.
always override the universal.
Okay.
Um, I will map things out, and when I map out years, I will look at, where are we universally and where am I personally. I don't necessarily integrate the personal month of the year into my personal month unless there happens to be some sort of numerological partnership that could be wobbly.
Okay.
So let me explain that and then I'll tell the universal aspect of it. So if I happen to see a 5 personal month and a 9 personal month, either way, whether it's
Mhm.
universal to personal, whatever, 5 being about change and 9s being about completions, I might look to that and say, I need to be more aware because I would like to be in charge of my own change. And I would like to be in charge of
Mm,
endings in my life pattern. So I want to be able to pick those and close those accordingly to me. I don't want them to happen to me. We've all had change happen to us. Where
yeah.
granted, not that we did not make choices that didn't support this surprise, it was a surprise nonetheless.
Right,
And
right.
it's never
The
fun.
universe being like,
We've had
"I'm gonna push
closures
you off the
happen to
cliff."
us. Yes, and we've had closures happen that we did not
Yeah.
choose for ourselves, okay?
Right.
Um, so on months like that, I would pay more attention, right?
Okay.
The universal year is what I see as more large establishments, the powerhouses, government, banks. In our world today, we have World Health Organization, and we have
Mm,
all of those big, huge powers that be, right?
mm.
Um, that's where you're going to see endings, restructures.
Got it.
And I will say that since it is a humanitarian energetic, when those changes and those closures are not well thought out from a humanitarian perspective versus greed,
Mm.
self-focused. I'm trying to think of my nice
My
ways to say things.
that's okay.
Um,
You can
when
say them however they come
it's
across, that's okay.
absent of greed,
We can
okay?
handle it. Okay.
Absent of greed and self-interest, it will not go well.
Okay. Makes sense
So you
of
it's
where things
got to
are.
be it's
Right.
got to be very inclusive,
Yeah.
caring energy.
Right.
And when you are talking about really large structures like that, of course there's going to be some just TG nuts and bolts. I mean, you're talking
Yeah.
about very tangible things that are intricate and have been built to be very tightly woven. And one thing way over here on the spider web really does hit over here. It can be very difficult.
Yeah.
That's where a 9 universal year would be. So
Okay.
right now, because we obviously have this new beginning as of
Yeah.
today,
Right.
as
That's
of
so
today,
wild. As of literally
um,
of today.
yes, it
The
is
day we're
shifting.
recording.
Oh my goodness, as of today. This is a real pivotal year. 9 years are
Yeah.
very pivotal because you don't just enter a 9 year and go, okay, done with this, done with that. There are some things
Yeah.
that you can because they've been building up,
Yeah.
but you have to think about where where you've come from. And 8 years are about
Mhm.
power,
Mm.
balance of power, non-material to material. It is also about the greater good and not just the self-good, you know?
Mm. Mhm.
So we've all
Got
seen
it.
those people who have really, really made it to the top of the hill and they did not have proper balance and they have
Mhm.
crashed hard in their
Mm.
9. It
Got it.
you will get kicked off the mountain if there's not
Yeah.
a full balance there. So we will see. And we honestly, no matter what all we see as a nation this year and as a world, because every other country is in a 9 year as well.
Yeah. We're in it together.
We're not the only ones. We'll really start seeing where we're landing come
Okay.
October of next year because we'll be
Oh,
heading into
okay.
a 1. So there is a big dynamic. Like right now, numerology moves very slow, actually. And I think that's a way that's sort of comparable to astrology because
Yeah.
astrology progresses, pretty slowly at times, depending on your I guess the different houses and the planets and where they're at. It's very complicated and I don't get it all, but I get the gist.
Which is
Um,
why I loved at the
so
beginning you had said that like numerology, like if you're in this new world of understanding
Mhm.
yourself, numerology is like one of those easy doorways in because it's a
Yes.
lot simpler to understand than like human design and
Mhm.
astrology because there's so much in there of depth.
Yes.
So this is a
And you
great
see the
place to
threads.
start. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely see the threads and you see the connective, nuances between them for
Yeah.
sure. But there's a transition. So every year in October, you start leaning into your new year. So we started leaning into the universal year. We start leaning into our new personal year.
Mm,
So as of October, you start feeling this blended energy.
got it.
Continues. So October, it's a little weak, gets a little stronger November, December, you're in it full force, which is why there's so much wonkiness and wobbles in
Yeah.
December. From October actually through February, it is. But, the holidays, bless them. So much drama can happen. And it's also
Yeah.
because you're really in between 2 numerological worlds. You've got your personal
Wow.
year of one and going into another, and the shift of the universal into the other. And there's just a lot of action going on.
Yeah.
January gets a little weaker. February, it's even weaker. And in March, you're finally fully in your new energetic year.
Wow.
And coincidentally, spring hits. We all sort of feel a little alive. And,
Yeah.
and for those who are, say, setting their New Year's intentions and all of that, start the new year, new me, new all of that. And they're like, oh, what was I thinking? Like that really wasn't fully aligned. Well, of
Yeah.
course, by the time whatever holds on in March, that's
Yeah.
that's the good stuff because there's just too much going on energetically at that new year
Mm,
for all of it to be stickable.
right, for it to
Like
really, like, land.
there's some high dreams there that you're not really
Yeah,
as
pulled up
firmly
to
connected
yet.
to. Uh-huh. And
Right,
you start
right.
really seeing those by March, whatever's there, it's there. Yeah.
And I really feel that in my personal experience because, I'm so glad this is, like, confirmation for my experience because I literally felt like because I've touched into my numerology just, like, the last, like, 3 years, just kind of,
Mhm.
like, getting deeper as I go into it.
Yeah.
Um And we spoke a little bit before we recorded on how my numbers had changed based on like my new birth date and my new name coming and all that stuff. But like I had, especially when I went in from that like 5 to 6 year, like I had said that to a lot of the people around me. I'm like, I literally feel like I live half the year and like the number feels like it comes early. Like I started travel half the year into what I was like, why?
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but now this makes so much sense that it comes
Mhm.
in like it's not that just like from January to December.
Yeah.
I mean, it's energy, so it's not going to be so straight. But
Exactly. Yeah, you don't go to
that,
bed on New Year's Eve in one
right,
energy and just
and then
wake
you
up in a
wake
new energy completely. It's not like an outfit change. So
right.
yeah, for sure.
Right. So
Yeah.
and then it makes sense within March because like everything's now rebirthing. You're actually in
Mhm.
that the new beginning of like nature and
Yeah.
coming online and stuff. So
Yeah.
that definitely resonates with like my own personal experience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, wow.
And it makes
Okay.
numbers fun. It kind of
Yeah.
it works with for me, I just see that it works with the rhythm of life and with the rhythm of nature very, very well.
Yeah. Very cool.
And so
So
approachable. Yeah.
you had spoken about like numbers also being associated with blocks and how you work within the numbers to
Mhm.
clear those blocks. Can you talk a little bit
Yes.
about that?
Yes, I can. Let me formulate my thought here. So,
You're like, this is a big topic to
numerology,
get into.
yeah, I'm like, it is, but it isn't. So, part of this would be just the progression of me. Numerology was that first thing that really entered as a modality. Meditation, God bless my dad. He really wanted me to meditate with him when I was 5, 6, 7, and that just was not happening.
Mm.
Did not do God bless him. He was having me do biorhythm charts and all sorts of stuff. Like I was
Wow. Way
just a
to go,
little pawn.
dad.
Way to go, Dad. It was very rough on a little single digit girl who was very active.
Yeah.
Um, so, those were the beginnings. And then when I was 14, actually younger than that, but we started going to psychic fairs. And when I was 10, 11, 12, you just get some little psychic fairs at the mall, back, I guess, when
Yeah.
there were malls, I don't know. And so many of them have closed in the world. And then so we started getting a little bit more intrigued with that spiritual side. My mother had a lot of spiritual events in her life because of
Oh.
her mother, who spoke to spirit and was not wrong, and there was just no denying it. There was just
Mm.
none. She was also deaf. So nobody could have
Wow.
told her.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot of that foundational spirituality in our family on my mother's side. And so as we go through, we start going to the psychic fairs and such. We move to Fayetteville, Arkansas. My mother gets involved with the Dowsing Association.
Mm.
The president of the Dowsing Association lived there. There was some real high and mighty connections at the time. Dolores Cannon was in that area at that time. So a lot of people are familiar
Wow.
with Dolores. I worked with her. My mother worked with her very early in all of her studies,
Whoa.
before ego really set in with her. And so there was just a really nurturing environment to broaden our knowledge. And so
Yeah.
with that, being the dowsing association, being the water finders, right? So my mother got dowsing wands and we were dowsing like that way. And then we got our pendulums and we started doing pendulums and then muscle testing. And so we had all of that going on.
Yeah.
So numerology and then, muscle testing and dowsing came in very early. So by the time I was 14, I had them both under my belt. Okay.
Wow.
And we were using those.
Okay.
And so that is foundational for understanding how I got involved in mind, body, spirit release,
Mhm.
because mind, body, spirit release is a form of clearing blocks that
Mhm.
are subconscious blocks and cellular blocks within the body.
Mhm.
We all now know that your body definitely does keep score. It holds all our memories, whether we consciously do or not. And because of that, there are a lot of events that we have in our life that create the foundations for limiting beliefs that can settle in and anchor in so solidly in a moment that we never question them. And they begin part of the lens of how we move through life. Those are subconscious. Now, for all of us who do a lot of our own personal work, we're doing the trauma healing, we're doing the inner child, we're doing all of the things, right?
Right.
Moving through to eliminate this baggage. You cannot easily clear and understand what you do not know is there.
Mm.
And mind, body, spirit release became a beautiful modality to clear blocks that was reminiscent to me of writing prayers. So we
Mm.
used to go, me, my mother, my godmother, and a group of women would go to a lake house every year. And we had a little prayer retreat, and there was girl time and such too, but we would write out prayers and then we would burn them and clear them and, see what
Yeah.
happens. Okay. And it was very F around and find out. It was a lot of that energy, right? We had these
We
really
love
great
that energy.
soulful, yeah. We started really learning about conscious language, and like when we say
Yeah.
this, like that's not what we meant, but that's what the universe read. Like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, okay.
Shit. Yeah, right.
And so all of this is there. So lo and behold, I come into mind, body, spirit release, and a lot of people utilize it for health alone, like physical health clearing, and it's beautiful for that. Beautiful. A lot of, health practitioners and such utilize it in their business, and it's very smart to do so. There are others who do it a little bit more for personal growth. That's more from the avenue that I did, but it originates with writing out an intention. And an intention is simply a prayerful affirmation. That's really
Yeah.
all an intention is. And I will write out an intention to whatever it is that I'm working on. You can do personal goals, you can do health goals and healing, you can do an assortment, just whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then I remotely muscle test with my pendulum for blocks. And those can be energetic blocks, they can be blocks that are built within your paradigm. Just a cultural understanding. It can be physical blocks
Mm.
and emotional blocks. And when you clear those, obviously, you've taken a little bit of weight out of your backpack. And what I find interesting is that because I can also pull up that there could be a block to a physical location, a person, a place, that there has to be an event, they're tied to a specific event.
Mhm.
You would be the one to really put those pieces together, right? You would have to
Right.
be the one. And so you can begin then to see how your life has one real center core thread that everything filters off of.
Mm.
And we don't often quickly get to the root of the connective traumas in our life and the connective limitations that we have just taken on as our own. And I can utilize mind, body, spirit release to remedy that and give you more insight for things like, holy cow, this never occurred to me. And I've done that now with numerology.
Mm.
I can look at my personal month and say, okay, I'm going to be in a 6 month, in a 5 year. And this is what these energetics combined sort of blend together.
Mhm.
I know what I want to accomplish this month. So let me write something, an intention for how I see the month. Like in this dimension, across all planes, this is where I'm at, this is it. So it's sort of like writing it as though it's already happened.
Mhm.
That's what an intention is. And then I do my testing. I'm like, do I have any innate blocks to the potentials that this month has for me? Because let's just
Wow.
eliminate those,
Yeah.
because life has enough to trip you up. Like, let's get
Yeah.
some of this cleared out. And I use a good example of mind, body, spirit release with how you can connect. So when I was 7, no, I'm going to take that back. I was 5. I started my first grade year and I started early. And, that's the first time you get a grade.
Mhm.
Okay. And I was quite the learner. I loved school, loved it, loved learning. I was one of those teacher pet thing. I was not a rule breaker. I wanted to be who you wanted me to be. I wanted to learn all I wanted to learn.
Mhm.
Like I'm all in.
Mhm.
And I would bring home my work and it's, all happy faces and smiles and such.
Mhm.
And of course, my parents excited and saying, you want to give your child positive reinforcement and we're so proud of you and we just love you so much. And somewhere in my little brain, that was the first time it had dawned on me to have a reason for why I was loved.
Mm.
Because before that, there was no measure. I just knew I was. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, there's this grade. So somehow in me, it just made perfect sense that this is why I'm loved. Like I just do perfect. I'm just perfect. I
Mm.
like get good grades. I do my things. I don't break the rules. Like this is why it is.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So who's asking their parents, hey, this makes sense. Let's have a discussion about this. Is this why you love me? Like, no 5-year-old's doing this. You
Right.
just embrace it as its truth because it's so obvious. It's like, it's daylight now.
Yeah.
No need to question. So then time goes on. We move to Wisconsin when I was in the middle of 4th grade. And it was the only time I actually moved during a school year. And it was quite the wobble for me. And when I got there, the first week that I was in school, and I was, like I said, 4th grade, they were having little quizzes and such. And the teacher said, hey, you can take all the quizzes and the little tests with us. You don't have to worry about the grade, but it'll help me know where you're at because I don't know. The schools can be different. And I just would like to know where
Yeah.
you're at on the learning curve for where we're at. And I got the highest score in all of the tests all during the week. And nobody would talk to me. They immediately thought that I thought I was better than them because I was smarter than them. And I
Whoa.
wasn't. And it was such a cultural shift. And so to be talked to, I started putting wrong answers. Like I knew they were wrong so that I wouldn't get good grades, as good a grade,
Oh
so that
my
people would speak to
gosh.
me. Okay. So that followed me and became quite the test anxiety for me through life. It was a huge hurdle. Okay. So I start on my personal healing journey.
Yeah.
I realize that I have a problem here with test anxiety and the fact that, I had to be perfect in order to be liked. So I knew that. Something else that occurred when I was there was I had a family member who had recently graduated, first one to graduate college in our family on, I think, either side. And that person said, make sure you keep your grades up and get into a good school and get a good degree because you'll never amount to anything without a
Mm.
degree. So, like, okay. So I'm taking that knowledge in. So, in the long run, even though I had addressed this whole like weird perfection thing,
Mhm.
and I knew I didn't have to be perfect in order to be embraced. And I also knew, and I had examples of people who did not get college degrees who were successful. Somewhere in my head, I had linked them together. Okay.
Mm.
Because I'm talking 5 to 10.
Mhm.
That was the core, that was that window of time. And it never dawned on me that they had hooked up and had a baby. I had this individual limiting belief that I dealt with, and
Mhm.
I had this other one. And until I started doing mind body spirit release,
Mm.
I was not aware that I had this new belief that you could either be successful or have connections, like friends
Mm.
and family. Like you could either
Right.
be embraced or you could be a success, but you couldn't be both.
Wow.
And that is huge,
Wow.
huge.
Which
And that was
overlays with
deep in
your
the
experience
subconscious.
of not being able to be really good in school and
Mhm.
then have to dumb yourself down for people to be able to communicate
Yeah.
and speak with you.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Massive, massive hurdles.
Mhm.
So I was so thrilled that I discovered and became certified at the professional level for mind body
Yeah.
spirit release because I use it all the time. All
Yeah.
the time. And then one day I just thought, I need to look at my month. Wait a minute.
Mm.
It just landed on me. And I'm the only person who does it
Yeah.
that combines numerology with that because it's a good entry point, for
Right.
numerology and for mind body spirit release to be able to get your feet wet when you are on your own personal path to
Yeah.
healing and to mastering who you are because
Right.
you are the longest relationship you will ever have. You have got to know yourself. And
Yeah.
that means to know where your shortcomings, your perceived shortcomings are, so
Mhm.
that you can navigate within those because those shortcomings are still, they're still blessings.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
some people may look at, my 7 soul urge and see it as such a limitation to need so much time and space to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't because that's where my heart opens up, and
Mhm.
that's what makes my business is so aligned as what it
Yeah.
is within my numbers makeup, and for someone else it might not be right. But guess what? You didn't come in
Mhm.
with that contract.
Mm.
I did, you know.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
feels so like it feels so grounded. Like it feels so grounded in your direct experience because in a lot of like the personal work and the personal development work that we do is so like, okay, who are you based on, where you were born, when,
Mhm.
the energy profile, all the things that like amount to like that's tied to like your birth date. And like
Mhm.
these things, these details, and you're like, okay, you're gathering more data, but so you individually, but then you're also like intermixing with like where the energy is at in the world and where you are at right now. So it sounds like such a just a beautiful combination of like, okay, here's the energy that's holding you directly in this month right now in this year that is going to be feel different than last year and the year before that. And then let's add to what is carrying those blocks in how you're being affected with your past and generational stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So it seems like it's a very grounded way that you can operate within your world to really be able to build what you want to build, because ultimately that's like, I think that's like the what boils down to like when you're trying to, when you start to do any of this kind of work, is like you want to live a better life, whether that's
Mhm.
like more calm, more peace, more aware, maybe more abundant, more safe, all these kinds of things. You're like looking for an experience that is not what you're experiencing right now, and closing that gap and finding a solution and finding a pathway for you to get there. Everybody's pathway is going to look different, but
Oh
this
yeah.
feels like a very beautiful, straightforward, grounded way that you can start that path or continue that path no matter where you're at. So,
Yes.
and I really resonate with a lot of the things that you had experienced when you were younger, because I think we're that messaging, we're somehow the template, the coding has is planted there for a lot of us of like, to receive love you need X, Y, and Z. A lot of it is the perfectionism. I dealt with that even when I was younger, of like, okay, I'm really good at school and I'm really good at like doing things for my family and doing like in the process of doing and being, you know, that same kind of thought process, like if you get good grades, you're going to do well, you're going to do well in life. If you get that degree, then you could support yourself and you could be that independent person. And so then it locks in so strongly to be like, okay, I have to live from this place moving forward. And then
Mhm.
it completely just changes how you're operating within the world, which is just like insane when you start to look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even though we have limitless examples of that
Yeah.
not being true,
Right.
it,
So it's like,
that's when you really know it's anchored deep.
yeah.
But there's a lot, I just tell people you can't learn from what you don't even know is there,
Yeah.
you
You don't
know?
know what you don't know. Yeah.
And look, there are some things that, you know, if I can just energetically disconnect a cord, because I
Yeah.
am a high certified as well.
Mm-hmm.
When I do energetic work with that, if I'm eliminating a cord and I'm just saying like, look, I just want to eliminate any cord that I have that is attached to said thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm saying I don't really need to know. I just want it gone.
Mm.
And, there's a time and a place for a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that those who are really on a journey to true self understanding, and through that, all the healing that comes about, we
Mm-hmm.
kind of want to know what we're doing. Like
Yeah.
we want to know where the root is to things. It's
Right.
a holistic approach to self-development.
Right.
Just like in health, you want to get to the root cause. Yes, you're
Right.
going to have to treat some symptoms along the way for sure, and you need to eliminate some symptoms, which for me I would relate to limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's let go of this symptom, this
Yeah.
limiting belief of something, but let's get down to the core. Let's get down to the core. And more people I find want to know more about the core.
Yeah.
And numerology and mind body spirit release, they let you pull the covers off on that and
Right.
see
Let you
what's
get there.
underneath. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the weaving of both of them together, I find so much joy in. I've just
Yeah.
uncovered so much about
Wow.
myself. And let me just say, I've been doing this a good while. Numerology, 45 years. Like it's been in my life for 45 years.
Yeah.
And mind body spirit release, a few. Energetic cleansing and dowsing. Oh my gosh, 40 years.
You have the
And
reps in.
I've got the reps in. I have the repetition. The thing is that, I started on all of this at a time where, we didn't have all the access that we do now.
Yeah.
And so the journey has been very slow.
Mm-hmm.
It has been tedious at times. It has felt like it was just going backwards at others. And to be where I'm at now with the ability to grow with some speed
Mm.
and and eliminate hurdles with more speed is
Mm-hmm.
something I am grateful for and
Yeah.
love being able to impart for others, because we're in a state now where there's so many opportunities for
Yeah.
you to learn a lot and integrate so much more. I mean, granted, there were certainly things I was glad I had the opportunity to integrate slowly because they were big and they were heavy.
Mm.
Um, and I needed to move through them at a slow pace. But now you have the choice.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can take in a lot and learn a lot and then back off and go,
Right.
okay, let it all soak in. So for the modalities and all that I do and the offerings that I do, really great little spaces to start is like a mind, body, spirit release
Mhm.
in general. And if someone wants to integrate the numerology to it, great. You start kind of learning a little bit of where you have those innate energetic blocks. It's ever better to have your chart though, as well,
Mhm.
to be able to see it, to see where your core four is and like kind of how you balance
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Um,
Would you recommend someone to come in that's ready to come into your world? Would you start with your numerology chart as a basis, or like let them lead intuitively whatever they feel into what they're needing at the time? Or how would you
well,
say like start here?
yeah. So, very good question. I am one for personal guiding.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I started explaining my way of coaching as an insight coach, because that is how we grow. We are
Mm.
not here to hire coaches to tell us what to do and how to do it.
Mm.
Um, because the dictation on someone's life is actually where we formed all of our limiting beliefs and our baggage.
You're like, actually,
And
that wasn't
so
really helpful ever.
that really wasn't helpful. There's a
I love
point to
that so
it.
much. Yeah.
There's some foundational learning, how you use your fork and spoon and how you cut and, all of those
Yeah.
basics. But after that, you need to be able to customize. So am I a fan of having your full chart? Oh my God. Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yes. Because within your chart, that's where you see where you have karmic lessons to learn or
Mhm.
modified karmic lessons to learn. And those are important to know about as you navigate other things, because if you have those natural stepping stones to learning that
Mhm.
you came in contracted with, good to know they exist
Yeah.
as
To be
you
aware of
move
them.
through. Yeah, to be aware of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just knowing your birth date and your just knowing what most people know, which is their life path and then their personal year, personal month, that is not, that's an appetizer.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
it is
Gotcha.
that is your appetizer. It kinda gets the
You
juices
want the meat,
flowing.
steak, and potatoes.
Yes, you want the actual meal. Um,
Yeah.
that said, you know, if if you wanna be able to just sorta dabble a little bit, then
Yeah.
sure, and I'm not saying mind, body, spirit release is a dabble at all. It is not, so let's not mistake it there. But it's a 90-minute, it's a one-off. It's being able
Okay.
to take and say, "Oh,
Spot
these are
check.
the kind of insights that kinda came up.
Mhm.
This is something that I might want to address." Even though I may clear a limiting belief, you may want
Mhm.
to look at where that limiting belief originated.
Mhm.
And that might be
Yeah.
your next step to
Yeah.
figuring out a little deeper who you have are from where you have come from. Because look, the,
Mm.
the thing is with healing is you don't stop living while you're healing.
Yeah.
So until you really, really wipe the lens of that limitation, everything you're doing is still going to have a reflection of that within it.
Mm. Right.
It
Right.
will, you can't undo part of your knowledge
Yeah. Yeah.
and just to have this moment. It's not like, let's put all of this baggage aside and I'm just going to deal with this suitcase right now. It doesn't
Right.
work that way. It just doesn't. I wish it did. It would make things
Right.
so much easier and we could clean house really well. We could like dump out all the kitchen drawers and
One room
just
at a
deal with
time.
those in one room at a time. But it doesn't. It's literally like everything has to be torn up all at once. And
Yeah.
that's why it can be slow. And that's also why it can be fast. And that's also why it can be overwhelming and
Uh,
stop you in your tracks, because we don't stop continuing on. So,
yeah.
and I do have like the deep dive numerology chart. That's a 3 hour, it's a weekend, it's a grab your drinks, grab a snack, we'll take a break. You get huge full document of everything. You have full Voxer support from me. It's not like you have me for this time. It's like once you got me, you got me.
Mm.
Um, and
Wow.
the mind body spirit release, I have single sessions. I also have packages of 3 and 6, so you can meet monthly and like kind of move ourselves along.
Yeah.
Um, because your insights are going to be what guides your next step.
Right.
So,
Right.
so
Wow, that's
yes,
beautiful.
start where you want to start.
Okay.
And here's the real big perks. Like for me, I know that I have karmic lessons within the 3 energetic and within the 8 energetic.
Mhm.
And so the 3 energetic is creativity and communication. I was always a writer. I always communicated best when I wrote. I think it's because it was the pace. It slowed me down and enabled
Mhm.
me to really speak truth fluidly.
Yeah.
I had challenges in knowing how to express myself throughout life. There was definitely times where I really struggled. Like how do I show people who I am so that they
Mhm.
understand me truthfully?
Mm.
That was a big, huge hurdle. And an 8, it's money, but it's balance of power.
Mm.
Where do I put my balance? It's between that non-physical and physical. It's about anything that holds power in your life.
Yeah.
Like so there's a lot of balance within that. And those are things that I would innately have more struggle with. I've done it very tangibly with money, learning my bad money lessons innately. Innately, I will say I did overcome them very, very well
Mm.
without any guidance. I just sort of innately knew how to dig myself out.
Navigate.
So it's
Yeah.
so it's actually quite the ego stroke when I hear financial advisors talk about, oh, this is how you get out of debt. And I was like, God, I did that
Yeah.
without knowing
Right.
anything. That's just who I
My
was.
inner knowing just let
Yeah,
me
it
know
just told
how.
me what to
Yeah.
do, but I had to go through it.
Mhm.
Have I
Yeah.
had just lifetimes of misunderstandings of what I meant and who I
Mhm.
am? Yes, it's a
Yeah.
huge struggle, and how you get there. So knowing those things about myself really sets me up when I'm
Yeah.
wanting to move into something, setting goals for things. I need to be able to
Right.
take into consideration, like, what are the potential lessons involved here too? And have I learned
Yeah.
them? Have I learned them? Do I feel
Yeah.
competent? Do I feel competent and confident that I'm prepared, like,
Yeah.
to take this step? It's so important. So I love being able to reference, my own
Mm.
chart. And also, when I'm just feeling not myself.
Mhm.
Everyone who gets that reading has a reference chart, a pretty
Mhm.
extensive reference chart to see, are you overbalanced in this energy of your life path? Are you under, or are you in that sweet
Mm.
Goldilocks, like you're balanced? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to see the forest that you're standing in for the trees. It's
Especially
really
in you're
hard.
in the weeds of stuff and you're
Mhm.
like, everything feels
Yeah.
like I can't see which way to go, what direction. You
Yeah.
just feel like the vision of that higher path of like which
Mhm.
way to go, you can't because you're in it. So
Yeah.
having
And
something
you're
that you can refer back to be like, okay, this is me at the core. This
Mhm.
is like where am I feeling off? And it gives you more of that
Yes.
foundation to come back to the tree, go back to your roots
Yeah,
and see if
because
you can navigate from
we
a place of
need
that knowing.
we need that check yourself moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
where we've shown our not best self.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always mean you're underbalanced and you're not empowered. It can be that
Yeah.
you are so over the top
Yeah.
that has got you off balance.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm a Southern girl. So let me just use some phrasing.
Uh-huh.
So you can either be too big for your britches. That's overbalanced.
Okay.
Or you can be too shy for your own good, which could be more underbalanced.
Okay.
And then you can be balanced, where you know when it's your time to shine and when you need to support others.
Mm.
Granted, that's just an example for how to think about overbalanced, underbalanced, because too much of a good thing is not always good.
Yeah,
Too little
right.
of
Oof.
something that is wonderful is also not always good. Like, there
Right.
is a sweet spot. And I
Yeah.
do know this is one of the ways that I really resented numerology as a child because when I was just not myself, like, you have those growing pains, especially preteens, you're so in your everything of emotions and your hormones are starting to kick in and your wants and you're not a kid and you're not a teen and you're just like not anything, but you're everything all at once. And it's just a hard time. And, we can go through our periods where we're real snots, that
Mhm.
God bless our parents for keeping us.
For that
Um,
face, I know.
but my mother would toss the book at me and say, look at the list. Look at the list. You tell me where you're at. I already know. And I'm like, and it's almost like I'm not even going to tell you how wrong off you are. You're going to see it yourself. You're going to check yourself.
Wow.
And so that was a huge lesson for me. I hated it, hated it. I mean, who likes to be called out, right? As adults, we need to be able to call ourselves out. And we also,
Mhm.
that's what's so great about having the right community with you, obviously, is that you have
Mhm.
people who really do love you, who can call you out. There's a lot of us who don't have that huge, community or even the small community that are the people
Yeah.
who know you in that way, who support you in that way. And we need to be able to check ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's moments where you may have that close connection and that
Mhm.
community they don't know that it's time to check you. And
Okay, so
so
I
it's nice to
wanna
have lists.
yeah, I
Yeah.
wanna segue to that, to the community that you're building with your
Mm-hmm.
heart-centered, focused people that you're wanting to
Mm-hmm.
be like, "Hey, we're gonna heal. We are
Mm-hmm.
going to learn how to be masters of, like, creating our future with these things." Can you talk
Mm-hmm.
about how you see that community forming and what that you wanna be for people?
Yes. So, part of my original online presence, as inconsistent as it
Mhm.
was about inner
We've all
calm.
been there.
Yeah, this was about inner calm because I do
Okay.
have 3 autoimmune diagnoses, and I thought at the time that I was going to be going through more of a holistic nutritional path,
Yeah.
in healing, because that's for those with chronic illness, that's sort
Yeah.
of where we launch in. Even though I
Yeah.
had a whole bunch of spiritual, background and such, that was where my online was. So I had started a blog about autoimmunity. And
Mhm.
the thing is that I'm too deeply spiritual to keep it
Mm.
at the health and wellness surface.
Mhm.
Um, Innately, I knew autoimmunity is about an internal battle with yourself.
Mm.
And I cannot turn my back on the metaphysical
Mm.
aspect of that. And that only leads you to trauma healing and inner child work
Mm.
and your deeper spirituality. And there's no way to successfully navigate that without learning yourself.
Mm.
And there is no greater calm in your life than knowing who you are. Because if you are anchored in that, you can successfully navigate and instigate in alignment. And so that autoimmunity is to stop battling internally,
Mm.
know what needs to be disrupted and eliminated and what doesn't. It is what you visually consume and audibly consume. It's what I put on my body. It's what I put in my body, physically, energetically. It is inner calm at its core. That's what my focus is through everything. Numerology, it's about that calm of understanding. Like,
Mm.
this is fully me.
Mhm.
And mind, body, spirit release. Let's clear anything that is not fully who I divinely am, because we
Yeah.
pick up a lot of baggage. And a lot of times, look, when you're walking the streets of the city, you do not know everything that's on the soles of your shoes,
That's true.
you know?
Okay, yeah.
So like let's not bring it in anymore.
Right, right,
Let's not bring it in. So
right.
that's really those are my people. The
Okay.
people who are ready to really see themselves, because look,
Yeah.
there are aspects of me that I know can go bad because
Mhm.
I'm too egoically connected to them. I am a
Mm.
human being. I joke
Right.
that, like, look, y'all, I have not yet earned my angel wings. That is why I'm here. Like, I don't have them yet, So
Yeah,
there's going to
right.
be some humanness to me because that's what I happen to be. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are my people. Are
Yeah.
you ready to be able to say, look, this is where I fall short. This is where my trip up is. I'm working at it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Call me out and let me also figure out where it originated from so it can stop
Yeah.
tripping me up, you know?
Yeah.
And let's bring in more modalities because nobody heals with one pill,
Yeah.
you know? And it's just you just don't do it that way. You have to have rest, you have to have different inputs of knowledge to be
Mhm.
able to see the full picture. And that includes the full picture of you, So
Yeah.
in time, do I see myself, getting a couple more certifications and understandings because I want to be able to integrate them?
Mhm.
Sure, I probably
Yeah.
will. Um, you know, but that's who
Your
that's who my
community
people are.
is.
Yeah, that's my
I
community.
Yeah, I often get this visual of like our different modalities, different pathways to be able to view ourselves as these different sizes of mirrors that are hung on like all different places of the wall. So you
Oh
don't have
yeah.
like a floor to ceiling mirror yet.
Yes.
Like we can only see ourselves in slight glimpses and reflections um, through mirrors of other people, of the modalities we're seeing. And so you can only kind of glimpse yourself at like part of your foot or part of your shoulder in these like little different
Yes.
size mirrors. So
Mhm.
in able to like be able to fully see ourselves, we just have to be able to find the mirrors that work for us and also the different reflections that were needed at that time. Like maybe I really
Yes.
need to focus on my face at this time. So like what's going to help me see
Yeah.
myself in the way that I'm needed to be seen. So it's okay to
Mhm.
experience and be experimental with the different modalities that you try, even if you don't like logically understand them. Like if someone's
Mhm.
like, I don't even know what a high is, I don't know
Yeah.
what mind body spirit release is, but like there's a pull, there's an energetic pull, there's an
Mhm.
urge that also is like, oh, something in this really resonates. And I just want to like really encourage anybody that's like listening to that, whatever modality that you're attracted to, even in this conversation, like you don't have to overthink to be like, but I don't really understand like what it is,
Mhm.
what's going to happen, or like what my end result is, and just kind of trust like whatever you're attracted to is going to be the mirror that you need right now to be able to see the part of yourself that's ready to be seen in this way. And I feel like that is really applicable to like how you're describing your modalities and what you offer to
Mhm.
people, which is extremely beautiful.
Yeah,
Where can people
I love it. I just love it
Yeah.
all. Yeah, and that's a beautiful I might just have to steal that. I love the mirror reflection because you're right. Sometimes it's just, we're walking towards one mirror and we catch a glimpse of ourselves in
Mhm.
another and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, wait, what?" And
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah.
I look good from that angle," or "Oh, no, what is that?" It's like a circus
Yeah.
mirror. Like, stop me in my
Yeah.
tracks. And that's beautiful. You're
You
gonna
know,
probably hear me talk about that, and I love
that's
that.
great, and, it's just dropping in for probably because it's for your modality to be able
Yeah,
to you say that because I don't
yeah,
yeah,
it
I just got
is.
it very visually for
Mhm.
yours of what
Yeah,
could be offered, and I like the way that you say, "Oh, that's a circus mirror," because not all reflections that you're being given, if by other
yeah,
people or
are
certain
true.
ways are true, are going to
Mhm.
be you'll be like, "Whoa, that is not
Yeah,
me," and that's also important
yeah.
too to
Well, and
know
it's
that discernment.
and it's
Yeah.
obviously part of what I've struggled with that furry energy with
Right.
expression. And,
Yeah.
even within business, because, you can, like, name babies, you can name your
Yeah.
business, you can utilize numerology for so many things, and also within your own personal chart,
Yeah.
understanding that's a huge thing for those who are either creating businesses, have businesses of their own, or are just in their unique field because
Yeah.
uh, you can align the career of your choice in support of your numbers. So
Mm.
I will give a quick example of that. I have obviously the 5 life path. So I do like elements of change. I want to be able to have a constructive use of freedom. And we were
Mhm.
talking before we hit record about how, really my ultimate goal is to be able to develop my business in such a way
Mhm.
that it replaces my need for regular corporate work and I can move back to be closer to my family and just do this full time. It
Mhm.
gives me such joy. And I certainly feel the impact that it can make in other people's lives, which
Mm.
just gives me huge, huge joy.
Yeah.
With my 22/4 expression, that is about structure and being able to really see the details.
Yeah.
And that's important with numerology and with coaching of any sorts. It's important that I be able to see the big picture, but with all the details of how those different parts of the umbrella weave together.
Mm.
Uh, because the big answers are in the big questions.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to see not just big picture, but how some details coordinate. And it's largely how people see that I approach situations very uniquely. It
Mm.
is because of that broad vision, but my soul urge is a 7.
Mhm.
And so for me, deep introspection and more of a philosophical look, which I feel is foundational for the way I coach, is
Mhm.
more like, well, here's a theory,
Yeah.
here's a theory.
Try
This is
this
what my
lens
life
on. Yeah.
experience was.
Yeah.
This is what this is. Like I can just see such a variety of avenues on
Yeah.
paths and ways to look at things, which is probably why I've blended modalities too, because I see how they work in union, whereas a lot of people would just see them as independent modalities. I also need a lot of time alone.
Mm.
And so entrepreneurship would
Mhm.
be smart for me. It
Yeah.
enables me to actually give myself what I need to give all of what I need to others, like what I really am
Wow.
driven to give. With that, the structure of my business is smart, right?
Yeah.
That's smart for that. And so, but you can do that with anything, any kind of
Yeah.
career. You can sort of see where the numerological, energetic can be embraced to
Mm.
amplify your personal experience in it, you know?
Yeah, and that's such a
So
practical way to, like, live in alignment because we say and we hear, like, "Live in alignment, things will
live
be
in
more
alignment.
easeful in
And people are
alignment."
like, what's that?
And you're like, "Okay, like, let me just" and there's different ways we can try things on to say, "Okay, this feels alignment, this doesn't," or whatever. But, the very practical way of like, "Okay, this is how I understand myself best in ways that, like, maybe in choosing career or operating in
Within
setting
it.
things up within the career like you're saying
Yep.
like okay yeah maybe all of us would some of us would thrive in entrepreneurship but like the way that I'm going to set my business up and the way that you're going to set yours up is going to feel completely different and be in
Yes.
alignment for both of us but perhaps be like so opposite in the way that it's
Yeah.
set up and so like and that's a good reflection too to be like okay what's alignment for me is not always going to be an alignment for another vice versa
Mhm.
so we could try to try other people's systems and setups on and then you're like wait this isn't resonating and this doesn't feel right or it's not working and you're like because it's actually not in alignment with myself let me check my chart let me check these
Yes.
things that you have
Yeah.
like tangible resources to actually look at and I love
Mhm.
how just like practical and tangible that is for people to like navigate their world in
Yeah.
so yeah
Yeah,
oh,
it is. I tell people, I'm like, you and I can have the exact same chart and we will not have identical lives at all.
yeah
There's
wow
no way for that to happen. Just like
yeah
naming your baby, you are not designing their life. Like you can't have it. Like we have
wow
independent choices and such. We have our soul contracts. We have what we're meant to do here and we're going to find our way unique to us.
mm,
So it is a tool for sure.
yeah yeah wow
Mhm.
okay, so we covered a lot.
I
Is
know.
there
I know.
is there anything that you would want to let the listeners know, or anything last thoughts that you feel like you want to wrap up, or do you feel complete about everything that we've been able to explore?
Feel very complete. Yeah, I would just
Yeah,
love
I
to
do
be able
too.
to, hear feedback from everybody who's heard the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
They can find me. I'm on Instagram at the Tiffany Dawn, and my website is the same thing, thetiffanydawn.com. I've got a little menu there. You can read all about me and
nice,
my modalities, and you can book. And of course, I have my link tree. We even
perfect.
have a discovery call that people can book if they're wondering, like, okay, look, this is
I'm
where
in
I'm at,
between, or
and I'm
yeah,
in between this option and this option. Like, where do you think? And I can at least pose some
hmm
questions to them so they can figure out where they feel best jumping
mm,
in.
perfect.
So that's a little 30-minute thing, and
Okay,
um,
perfect.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll have all your links below in the description and show notes so people can just hop on quickly to your links and get started. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being able to
Oh,
share all of
thank
your
you.
wisdom on with this. And
Thank you so
I
much.
know I'm very excited to navigate more into my charts, especially since now I have two of them to toggle to be able to integrate
Yeah.
within myself.
To be
So
able to look at, yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah. Yeah. Because
yeah,
just a married name alone is one thing. It's a good influence, but
yeah,
you go the whole 9 yards with new birth
yeah,
everythings. And
right.
yeah,
Legal name change and all of that,
yeah,
like
it's a big energetic shift. We were just talking about the
yeah.
life path change. I'm like, whoo, that's a
Yeah,
big change,
Ti
my friend.
Tiffany
That's a
was
big
telling
change.
me yeah, Tiffany was sharing with me before we recorded that my previous life path, my life path was a number 2, and my
Mhm.
current new life path, with those who have been following the show and my journey know, but my new one is now an 8, and so she was
Mhm.
describing to me how that's a huge energetic jump, and I'm like, "I've
Yes.
been feeling it."
Yes, from what I say, that energetic of the 2 is cooperative, it's partnerships, it's power behind the throne. Like, you're not gonna be the front person. Like,
Yeah.
it is definitely a synchronistic energetic, and an 8, that is all about power, and that is
Mhm.
not a behind the throne energetic. It is not. That is all in on the deep end.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah.
interesting because okay, so the shift made, and I'll normally make changes just out of intuition, and then I have an amazing community or friends or people that I work with then reflect back to me like, "Oh, that's probably why you did this."
Yeah.
So I ended up changing because now in my chart, I'm a Leo rising, which matches the power of things.
Oh,
But,
got it.
but I had changed my podcast name to now it's The Stormy Show, so it's, like, literally my show, and it was just she was just like, "No wonder you're a Leo rising, you're in your power, you're in you're not behind the scenes, you are the
Yes.
thing," and so I was like, "Wow, okay," because like, me a few years ago or, like, when I originally started podcasting, I'd be like, "Oh my god, I could never do that, like, I could never name it that." I would never I want it just to be
Yeah.
about everybody else. And I still love doing interviews and stuff, but it's, yeah. So the shift, even that I'm doing similar things, how I operate in the way that I'm doing it. And even when I was telling you before, like even how in my spiritual practices and how I think about spirituality is just like, it's coded differently. It's all in
Mhm.
transition. So obviously that comes with a lot of growing pains. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and even with that, just so your listeners and all know that, yeah, we had talked about the fact that it would be good for you to have a full, like, original birth chart, and then
mhm.
essentially do a child's chart for your new name, because I do baby naming and all of that as well with numbers. But to give you that, to give you a little stronger of a roadmap that can
Yeah,
just be there on paper, so that your
right.
intuition doesn't have to kick in on
Yeah.
everything, like have something tangible to reference. Yeah, it'll get you
Yeah.
from your new birth into your young adulthood of your new
Yeah,
name,
right.
because that's really what it is. Yeah.
Right. And you even
Yeah,
said I
so
wanted
cool.
to mention, like and now that we just had talked about names, that, like, when you get married, you
Mhm.
don't can you explain how you just had said that your actual like, the energy of where you started doesn't change, but it's like an overlay of the new
Mhm.
name, right? Am I
Yes.
saying that right? Okay.
Yeah, so what happens is you add on this, I guess, a pocket energetic, okay?
Okay.
So you add on this complementary energy. Now, the more connected you are to that name, the
Yeah.
more powerful it's energetic in your life, right?
Okay.
So there are some people who get married and, take the name or don't take the name, but either way, they're not really connected to it,
Mm.
one way or the other. That would probably be me, because my whole life, I'm Tiffany Dawn. It's my first and middle name. And so, I look at my last name as, it's like my tribe.
Mm.
It's like where I
Okay.
come from, but it's not who I am,
Not who you are.
So
Okay.
yeah, unique way of looking at it, but it isn't energetic. So I've done a beautiful reading I did a beautiful reading for somebody this past year that had gotten married, and within her new name filled the energetic gaps of the only two numbers that she had no energy for. And it was
What?
a perfect union of
Whoa.
energetic. It balanced her chart entirely. Now, that gave her tons of peace and groundedness and centeredness because that's where she was at. There are also soul contracts that lean towards the dramatic, let's just say, and there are
Okay.
lessons to have within them. And in that case, you may be bringing in this extra energetic of challenge. And that's
Interesting
because that's the contract you have
that you signed
with
up
that
for.
person that you signed up
Okay.
for. That's when, we were talking about the baby naming and how, with that, it's sort of a 2-part chart.
Mhm.
Originally, I have a child's chart, which is the whole thing put together. But,
Yeah.
if your baby's not here yet, and you're still working through the names, there's a reason you're being called to them. That baby is, guiding you to names as well. And you can get a pre-birth chart with me and be able to see where the energetic balance is within the name. You can get the soul urge and the expression and that energetic balance before they're born. It's the only
Yeah.
modality you can actually know a lot about your child before they're born. I mean, think about it.
Wow.
Everything else you require a birth date. Human
Right.
design and astrology and everything else, you don't need a birth date to get a good idea. And you'll know
The
if it's
energy of the
aligned or not.
name. Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
may be, and if there was, like sometimes just a tweak of a spelling can change a full dynamic of
Mm.
the balance of the energetics within the name, because, every letter, like I said, has a numerological
Mhm.
counterpart. So you may be missing some energies, right? So when you're
Wow.
missing energies, that can either be a karmic debt or a modified karmic debt. You don't quite know yet until you get your life path, because a
Yeah.
modified karmic debt is where you have none of that energetic, or you have the energetic not within its overall balance, but you have it in one of your core 4. So say, like for me, a karmic debt, I don't have modifieds, I have 2 karmic. So a karmic debt is where you are lacking the energy pretty much everywhere. Like you don't have an anchored number. So it's not in the life path, expression, or soul urge. So my life path, soul urge, and expression are not an 8. None of them are. So I get
Mm.
no energy from those. So I'm lacking the 8, which is where I have the karmic lesson with that energetic. Same
Oh.
with my 3. So it's just within the life path, expression, and soul urge. So if you don't have them in one of those 3 powerhouses of the core 4, you have a karmic lesson, which means you have a debt to pay off. You didn't do something well in a previous life, you need to do right now. You got to get the other
Interesting.
side of the lesson from the coin. So say you had no 4s, you in a past life would have pushed against following through on the details,
Mm.
pushed against work, avoided it. Maybe tried to jump through the cheater hoops, go from A to D and then to Z, and then you didn't do A, B, C, D, right? And there was a failure in that life to learn the value of that follow through. So this life, you're going to have no choice. You're going to have to follow through or it will only fall apart. Like
Wow.
that's how those balance. Now, a modified is that if you don't have it within the balance, but you do have it somewhere else. So if I had
Okay.
no 5s, which is not the case, but if I had no 5s in my name itself, but I had my 5 life path, I get a little support. Okay. So I'm going to have to learn the lesson of how to really utilize freedom in a constructive manner, but it's not going to be so potentially ugly hard.
Okay.
Like the
So
karmic
do
lessons can
you
be the ugly bumps. The modifieds, they're just
Okay.
those like moments where you're like, oh Jesus, that was a
Yeah.
spell, you know. So when you're looking at your baby name,
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to be able to see about eliminating the karmic lessons,
Got it.
the hard ones. But if the name feels right to you and there's a karmic lesson in there, there's a reason for it. And
Yeah.
like we were talking, if you have a specific lesson that you as a parent know your child is going to have, you are now empowered to be able to help coach your child into being prepared
And ease. Yeah.
for those
For that
moments.
lesson. Wow.
Because even a karmic lesson doesn't have to be ugly. when you're
Yeah.
learning it. It doesn't have to be.
True.
You just have to be able to be prepared. So you can do those. And I could always, if I saw an offering of a spelling adjustment to keep the name you want, to be able to eliminate,
Yeah.
I
To
offer
have
it.
it more
You do what you
balanced
want.
than you
It's
can. Yeah.
yes, it's your contract with your child and your soul and your child's soul contract.
Mm.
Once they're born, we can add in the life path and integrate it so you
Mm.
have a fuller understanding. And the chart that you end up with for them gets them from birth to young adulthood, because there's short-term life path periods and long. And the child chart will give you everything up until essentially the first life path period. And
Gotcha.
that will get your parenting phase covered. It'll get your
So
parenting phase covered.
is your first life path period then like 18 years is what you're saying? Or like,
No, it actually varies depending on your life path.
oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we all have changes. Now we all, people who are into like the astrology and stuff, you
Yeah.
are knowing about like your Saturn return, and
Right.
there's
That's what I'm
certain
familiar
things
with.
that are
Yeah.
sort of going to hit.
Better for
And
everyone.
I had a hell of a Saturn return myself. But yeah, I had a really big one. But they're timed. Like you get a shift of energy at different points
different
in
points.
life, depending on your life path. So it's
Wow.
kind
So
of
it's
good
very
to
kind of
sort of
unique
know.
to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there are certain periods that do like transition at the same age for everybody. And you
Okay.
would get that in a full birth chart, you would
Reading.
get that information. Yeah, you would get that. But
Got
this
it.
was a different aspect. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Even like namings of businesses and stuff. It's
Yeah.
all the same. Because when
Wow.
you name something, you give it energy.
Yeah. It becomes its own entity,
Period.
really.
Yep.
Like it's like,
Yep.
yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
its
So
own
what
energetics.
energetic do you want it to have? Like
Right.
it's a big
Right.
thing. A name is a big thing.
Right, right. Is okay, I have like a fun kind of final question that I want to like propose. Is
Yeah.
that so my and I just and this is wild because this weekend I just had met somebody that also experienced this too. And I'm like, how much of this is coming out now? So we found out in 2020 that my dad's dad wasn't his real dad. So our last name or my current legal name isn't really the legal name that like was supposed to happen. Like he was supposed to be a different name from the different father, but was given the different name.
Yeah.
And then so when the whole name change started 4 years ago of like, wait, if I'm not this anymore and I was supposed to be this, what does that mean? And so it's interesting. I just want to hear your kind of thoughts or opinions whether or not like that being contracted in of like, okay, that was supposed to be your last name because that was your actual father, but now this is your last name because of situational whatever. And then now I've gone through my process of change where it's like, okay, this is now potentially the third last name now that I'm going to give myself, or that is like energetically maybe like involved. How does that even like, what are your thoughts on that?
So if you were, the key word for me is supposed to.
Okay.
If you really were supposed to,
It would have
you'd
happened.
have had it.
Okay. Got it.
So just like you had said that your name was originally supposed to be something else.
Right.
Well, now it is, because it is now supposed to be.
I see.
You had a blip. You had just you took an off ramp on your contract. That's it.
Right.
And so inevitably, your mother somehow innately knew, because you were letting her know that regardless of what you name me now, I'm meant to be
I will be this. Yeah. Wow.
This is who I'm meant to be. And so you are. So your dad got the name he was meant to have.
Got it. Okay.
And, I had, like, my dad named me, and there were not boys born, or not girls born first on our family tree. Just for some reason, the girls landed after, however many there were or weren't. Okay.
Yeah.
So it never dawned on them that they would have a girl.
A girl first. Yeah.
And I was late. I was 2 weeks late. My parents were very young when they had me. They were just 18 and 22. They had just barely been married, like 5 months before they got pregnant with me. And I was going to be this compilation of my brother, my dad, and his 2 brothers' name. It was just going to be this obnoxious for like all the boys' names. I'm so grateful I didn't have this long name. And at the time, my mother was getting asked like, oh, what you going to name? What kind of baby names do you have? What kind of baby names? And she'd say it. And they're like, what about if it's a girl? And I'm like, oh, it won't be a girl. And they're like, oh, you're going to feel so guilty. You are going to feel so guilty if this baby is born and it's a girl and you don't have a name for her. And they were like, oh my God, like what's going, like she was getting told it a lot. And like, you're going to feel real guilty. You're going to feel real guilty. And they're like, Jesus Christ, like maybe we need to have a girl's name. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Right.
So my dad was in radio and he was a program director, which is essentially like the boss of the disc jockeys. But he always had like the morning drive. So he was that morning announcer that you would have listened to on your way into work.
Okay.
And back then he would stop and get a newspaper every morning to talk about whatever news he was going to talk about during his time on air.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's flipping through it. He sees an ad for Tiffany settings for a sale on jewelry settings, the Tiffany setting, and flips it and also sees the weather report. And instead of sunrise, it said dawn. He happened to catch Tiffany dawn and it just caught him.
Clicked in. Whoa.
And I'm like, that was me. Now, he didn't want a baby. He did not want me and was not ready to be a father. He was very adamant about it, didn't want me. And so I know I was late because I had 2 weeks of extra growth time. Okay. So that 2 weeks, if anybody has been around a newborn, there's a lot that happens in their strength and their awareness in those 2 weeks. And I essentially had to have that to not be like a standard newborn because my dad would just not have accepted that. He would have seen it as weakness, like wobbly head and all. So his first view of me was in a nursery and everybody was crying. And I was just laying there, eyes were open and I was quiet. So he had named me and he saw me as not some crying, whiny, screaming newborn. So he saw me as strong and I was accepted to the herd, so to speak. Right.
Wow.
So like we have reasons for our name and we have reasons for, our arrival time. That's why I don't care if someone is doing a pre-birth chart, just wants to do a child's chart because they have their due date or their scheduled date, because I was scheduled to be arriving the day after my birthday. And my mother went into labor on the 12th.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that is not my birth date. Like they booked it wrong. And I showed up on the 12th and you can see it in my chart. Like if I did a chart for that next day, it just is so fully not the alignment,
Right.
Would be if I had shown up that day, it would have been in alignment. But
right.
The thing is it didn't. So we get the names we're meant to, and we are, and parents are gifted those names. Largely, they're gifted the names.
I really like ending on that, how you described supposed to, because we get hung up on, well, if that happened or that was, and then we get hung up on that story of what that would change in our lives. And I really love how you delivered that to be like, if it was supposed to, it would have happened and it would have meant to. So then obviously it wasn't meant to. And it gives a very, again, you're very grounded in the way that you deliver things for them to be digestible, to be like, okay, so I can just go from that point on because now I'm no longer thinking about what was supposed to happen originally because it wasn't meant to, which is so beautiful. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good.
Thank
Well,
you
hopefully
so
it's a
much,
reframe
Tiffany.
from a lot of people because
I think that was super need to be delivered. I'm like, why am I bringing
judgment.
this up? So I think that was, a very needed, like, quick lesson that is able to be applicable in so many different areas for us because it's a hang up. It's a block.
It's a judgment. It's a judgment.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. I look forward to a lot more conversations with you.
Oh, likewise.
Yeah, I love it. Off of this and on. So that'd be great.
Well, thank you everyone that have lasted this long into our conversation. We have really made it a long one for you, but so much goodness. Yeah, reach out to Tiffany. You know where to find her at the Tiffany Dawn. Let us know how you enjoyed the conversation and how numerology and all of this, any nuggets that you feel that has touched you or changed your perspective, you could reach out to me or Tiffany or both. We would love to hear from you. And until then, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, Tiffany.